And now it's time for the press review. Dipti Laurent joins me for a browse through the French papers. Welcome, Dipti.
Hi, Shona.
Today there's a lot of focus on the Turkish president's trip to Paris.
That's right, and not in a good way, we might say. Let's start with that. Recep Tayyip Erdogan is on a diplomatic visit to France, and the Turkish leader will, of course, be lunching with Emmanuel Macron. They'll be holding a press conference later this Friday in Paris. For Le Parisien newspaper, it's a lunch that's making a lot of people bitter. They use the word grincer there, which kind of means to grind your teeth. So it's making a lot of people uncomfortable because on one hand, Turkey is a, quote, indispensable partner in helping fight jihadists in Syria. On the other hand, Erdogan is somewhat of a, quote, embarrassing guest to have, given how little respect he has for human rights. And L'Humanité, the communist paper, goes even further. They're very scathing. They say, quote, between two purges, Recep Tayyip Erdogan stops over in Paris. So it's sort of a flippant visit in between those crackdowns that he's become renowned for now, linked to the failed 2016 power takeover. Indeed, it is the first time he's visiting France since that failed power bid.
But the right-leaning press is a little bit more optimistic.
They're a little bit more tempered in their reaction. Le Figaro, the right-leaning paper, recognizes that Erdogan's trip to Paris aims to, quote, appease tensions with Europe. The diplomatic situation in Turkey with Turkey and the West has really degraded in recent times. You'll remember last year, Angela Merkel didn't want pro-Erdogan officials from rallying in Germany ahead of a referendum. In response, Erdogan accused Germany of, quote, Nazi tactics. Things with the US are not so good. So it's Le Figaro does recognize that Erdogan needs to mend bridges as his country faces international isolation. Now, Macron and the Turkish leader may have diverging values, but they do have converging interests. That's what L'Opinion, the right-wing paper, says, calling this trip a give-give situation. Their converging interests are notably working together on fighting terrorism and a whole host of other political and social issues. Interesting to note that French leaders have had a tricky relationship with Erdogan in the past. You have Nicolas Sarkozy, who clearly did not want Turkey to be part of the EU. François Hollande sort of took the approach of letting Angela Merkel deal with it and kind of not have to deal with that. While it'll be interesting to see what kind of approach Macron takes.
All right, and a bit of sports now with the famous Dakar rally being held many thousands of kilometers away from Dakar, starting in the Peruvian capital of Lima.
That's right. It's the 40th edition this year, the Dakar rally, which reunites motorbikes, cars and trucks. They kick off in the Peruvian capital of Lima, and then they'll be traveling through Peru, Bolivia, before finishing in Argentina in a couple of weeks. There is one man who's hoping to get his hands on this title for the first time. That's French champion driver Sébastien Loeb. It's really, for L'Equipe, the French sports paper, his last chance to win the Dakar rally. That's what they say. The 43-year-old's longtime sponsor, Peugeot, has announced that they'll be withdrawing from the race next year for company strategy purposes. So it's essentially his last shot at winning the title as a Peugeot driver. This is his third Dakar rally, and he's never won, but he'll be hoping it's third time lucky because Stefan Peter Hansel, who's a fellow Peugeot driver, has won the race for the past 2 consecutive years.
Okay, and then finally from you, Dipti, Mark Zuckerberg has revealed his New Year's challenge.
That's right. The Facebook founder, every year he sort of announces a challenge for himself. He sets himself a goal. That's what the street paper 20 Minutes explains in this article. In the past, for instance, he successfully mastered learning Mandarin. He promised to wear a tie every day, something he did also hold to. And he also set himself the challenge of traveling to all 50 states of the U.S. I'm not sure if you've done that, Shona, but...
No, I have not.
In any case, Zuckerberg has. Well, this year his promise might be a little bit harder to keep. He said he wants 2018 to be the year where he, quote, repairs Facebook in a post on Facebook. Zuckerberg,
much more ambitious.
Much more ambitious, probably harder to achieve as well. Zuckerberg said he wants to address issues like protecting the community from online abuse and hate and making sure time is well spent on Facebook, no doubt in reference to some rather scathing comments from a former employee last year who said that Facebook is destroying the very fabric of our society.
That's right, and also following the role of Facebook in the last election, right, that was heavily criticized.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Dipti Laurent, with that press review. We'll be back in